First meeting of the White House Council on Supply Chain Resilience happening today. And it comes as the country continues to battle high inflation that's fueled in part by the supply chain disruption during the pandemic. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg sits on the council, joins us now exclusively. Secretary, welcome. I actually want to start on Thanksgiving travel, though, since we just got done with that and what it says about the state of infrastructure and TSA, airline, all of that staffing in this tight labor market. There were fears that travel could be a nightmare this weekend, but it seems to have come off pretty well.
Thanks. I appreciate you asking that, because often when things go well, it doesn't get as much attention. Our numbers that TSA at the Homeland Security Department provided suggest that yesterday was the busiest day of air travel in American history, and the rate of cancellations and delays was well below 1%. So we have seen major progress. Now, nobody's spiking the football. We're still keeping very, very close watch on the airlines and taking very proactive measures with regard to the FAA and the air traffic control system to make sure we continue building on those improvements. But you look at where we are now compared to where we were, let's say, a year and a half ago, the summer of 2022, major improvements. And when people do get stuck or have a problem, we have much better passenger protections in place that we can enforce as a department compared to even 2 years ago.
One more on that, then. How much of this improvement has to do with improved airline software systems? Because we had a number of concerning breakdowns there over the past year plus.
We have seen the airlines step up with regard to more realistic schedules, with regard to staffing, and with regard to technology, things we've really been pushing them on. Look, as a department, we're less focused on exactly how they get the results. We just need to make sure that they do get those results, get people to where they need to be on time, take care of them, follow the law and regulations. And look, the industry has a long way to go. And by the way, so does the FAA. We are coming to Congress right now asking for funding for more air traffic controllers, for technology modernization. I'm concerned about the House Republican proposed cuts that would affect, they would really short, among other things across the transportation sector, they would short FAA from what we think we need. But we're going to keep pushing because we know, in addition to holding the airlines accountable for their performance, we got to make sure we keep our house in order when it comes to the air traffic control system overseen by the FAA.
Okay, well, we talked moving people. Let's talk moving goods. This supply chain council, tell me what the metrics are that you're going to be able to use to judge that this is working. More than half of freight by value crosses state lines. More than a quarter is international imports. That's a lot of different jurisdictions to try to coordinate and manage.
Yeah, there's no single variable that can tell you how you're doing, but we can assemble a picture that I don't think was available before, because we have new methods of bringing data together so that we can look at fluidity, we can look at on-time performance. The basic idea, of course, is making sure we get the things that we want and need on time, and that it's affordable. You know, we've seen shipping rates come down considerably since 2 years ago. We think that's one of the big drivers in the disinflation that we've been seeing, if you compare inflation rates to where they were about a year ago. But there's clearly more work to be done to make sure that our supply chains are strong for the long term. This has been a big focus of the president and the administration really from day one. You know, supply chains have become a household term. It's not just something for infrastructure buffs to talk about. But it was really as early as February of the president's first year that he had an executive order calling on the administration to take steps around supply chains. A number of steps took place over that summer of 2021 that I think really served us well when things reached a crisis level as those COVID disruptions worked through the system. We all remember those images just 2 years ago, this November, actually, of all those ships bearing down on the West Coast ports. And the fact that, you know, those most dire predictions didn't come through, that Christmas wasn't canceled. In fact, that throughput at those ports hit an all-time high, really is a credit to, of course, the workers who do the physical work of making sure goods get to where they need to be. But I think also all of the players from the private sector that the administration convened and sat down with, saying, okay, what can we do to get through this historic disruption and set ourselves up better for the future?
So part of the strain here on the supply chain is this domestic energy boom, right? And pressure then on intermodal. What happens with safety, particularly in rail, given what we saw happen earlier this year in Ohio?
Well, safety is the bottom line, and we care a lot about efficiency, about fluidity, about cost, and about performance, but there's nothing we care about more than safety, which is why we're continuing to call for elevated rail safety regulations, things that we know will work and make a positive difference. Right now, there's a Railway Safety Act. It's been sitting in Congress for months. We're coming up on the one-year anniversary of that derailment in East Palestine that woke up so many Americans to the level of derailments that were happening all along. Finally got the attention that it deserved. And now we need to make sure there's real action. We've taken a number of steps as a department with the authorities that we have. But if Congress acts as we are urging them to do, it would enable us to do more to make sure that we have that kind of safety. Then we need to make sure there's good infrastructure. And, part of both safety and efficiency is a function of your physical infrastructure. That's why we're making major investments in rail, everything from railroad crossing elimination around the country that can improve fluidity and improve traffic safety, all the way through to these, unsexy but deeply important updates to tunnels, to bridges and other facilities. Another thing, by the way, that we're really urging Congress to work with us to fully fund and not put on the chopping block after all the progress we've made.
Secretary, finally, what about data and artificial intelligence and their role in this? It is Cloud Week here on Overtime. We've got Amazon's AWS reInvent happening. Amazon has become the biggest mover of goods within the country lately by vertically integrating. We've got Samsara on Friday. That's a company that's using data and the Internet of Things to try to make things more efficient. Is the government going to be able to pull together these disparate sources of data and run AI on them to drive this efficiency in a way that also protects privacy?
So we're taking steps right now, in fact, an unprecedented level of data sharing through an initiative that we stood up in our department called Flow, bringing people to the table, not through a large, ponderous government mechanism or regulation, but really a voluntary agreement to share data that can be stripped of anything that's business sensitive so that different players along the supply chain can get better information. Often we were finding that shippers didn't know where the best place and time to line up their chassis were going to be. A lot of things I think most Americans would assume that people could see across the supply chain between the shipper, the port, the warehouse, and the cargo owner that actually wasn't being shared. So we're really pleased with the early results that we're seeing here. We've got a lot of the top importers and retail chains like Home Depot, Target, Costco, Walmart at the table working with the ports and working with us. And to get to your question, I do think AI is going to play an increasingly important role. We're talking about enormous bodies of data here where we can see early warnings of where there are imbalances, where there are the kinds of things that led to shockwaves through the system back in 2021. And now is a real opportunity. It's got to be safe. It's got to be fair. It's got to be consistent with good competition policy and data protection. But I believe we're going to see more and more of that. Much of it, frankly, most of it should not be owned and operated by the federal government. But we are proud to be playing a coordinating role, bringing people together to get this data sharing done.